I can't find that rush, that same release of anger I felt that first time.
Well, there was a release of anger.
Oh, without a doubt. It's like busted a piece of glass and there's just little shivers all up in there.
It's hard for me to picture all that where there wouldn't be at least some little element of power. Life and death is in Tommy Sell's hands rather than somebody else's, you know, like I have power like God has to say who shall live and who shall die. That's a hell of a power.
Who has?
God.
God. You believe in a God, and you're a psychiatrist. You're full of too.
Well, people talk about that godlike power. They use the word as a way of speaking, not necessarily whether they are religious or not.
No, I wasn't playing God. Tommy's not a god. Tommy is a very complex, screwed up individual.
On the night of his last murder, he went into the bedroom of two sleeping girls.
I woke this girl up, and she jumped up and told this girl to go get her mom. And I stabbed her here, and then she like jumped back, and then I, cut her like this right here. And she fell down right here. Was no resistance. I just killed her. And this little girl up here, I walked over here and I went like this.
One of the girls survived. Her throat slit. She walked over a mile to get police. Sells was finally arrested.
Was she moving, trying to get away or something?
No, she just laid there.
Okay.
Science has shown that the brains of cold-blooded psychopaths do not have normal emotional responses.
Did she do any screaming or yelling or anything when she got cut?
Yeah, but not real loud.
Okay.
Main thing she said was, go get mom.
As Dr. Stone probes the mind of Tommy Lynn Sells, he finds that the cross-country killer fits that chilling profile.
I think that remorse is kind of an alien. It seems like it doesn't have much relevance to your life.
Has none.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I can figure out how to release that anger, how to release that rage, how to turn all this shattered glass off, I think then I might feel remorse.
And if you did feel remorse, what about that? Would that be?
I'd probably go ahead and just hang myself or something.
To Dr. Stone, Tommy Lynn Sells is even more callous than Gary Ridgway or Ted Bundy.
He is the most cold-blooded killer I've ever met. In fact, he got a rush, actual pleasure, from seeing people suffer. For that reason, I would place him on level 22 on my scale.
When we come back, we'll look deeper into the mind of a psychopath like Tommy Lynn Sells. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Stone meets with serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells in order to understand what makes some psychopaths so cold-blooded.
It was like a rush. It was like chasing a dragon.
What within the mind of Tommy Lynn Sells enables him to commit such atrocious acts, even find pleasure in seeing others die?
And I stabbed her, like right here somewhere.
These researchers are exploring that question, and the answer may lie in fear itself. At the University of Southern California, Michelle Fung studies psychopaths.
They don't have the same experience of fear or anxiety that most people do. So when they're thinking about committing a crime, telling a lie, cheating on a test, it doesn't bother them as much as someone like you or I.
We know that psychopaths don't experience emotion in the same way as others. And one emotional trait that may define psychopaths: fearlessness. If researchers like Michelle Fung are right, then psychopaths don't feel fear like most do. Dr. Fung compares psychopaths to non-psychopaths. Electrodes are placed on the subject's skin to measure heart rate and sweat rates. Once subjects are wired, the challenge for Fung is to create an anxious situation. For most people, anxiety is triggered by not knowing what to expect. A monitor is rolled in which will serve as a timer. Starting from 12 seconds, the numbers will count down to 0. Meanwhile, researchers watch the subject's heart and sweat rates. Subjects are told that when the countdown ends, they will hear a jarring blast of white noise, like a loud scrape on a chalkboard. What usually generates fear for most people is not only an event, but the anticipation of the event.
You know exactly when it's coming, down to the very second of it. We get anxious, our skin conductance level goes up, we start sweating, it makes you feel nervous.
Normal people sweat. Psychopaths, however, don't.
It doesn't affect them as much. They don't respond to it, they don't get as sweaty, they don't feel as anxious when they know that that burst is coming.
The study has been replicated numerous times with a wide range of subjects, so there is a consistent set of data with intriguing implications.
When you think about a really heinous crime, your immediate thought might be, how could anyone do that to someone else? But if you can think about this result that we find, it makes more sense. It's not necessarily an excuse for behavior, but it's sort of an explanation of how that is possible.
Dr. Adrian Rain, a professor at the University of Southern California, has taken their research a step further.
We can see a physical difference in the brains of psychopaths. They're literally wired differently to the rest of us.
He also measures physiological responses like heart rate and sweat conductance. But instead of making the subjects wait for an unpleasant sound, he makes them wait for an even more unpleasant situation. Subjects are abruptly told they will have to prepare a 2-minute speech about the worst thing they have ever done.
Okay.
To increase the anxiety, they are told they will be videotaped.
Obviously, it's a situation where people become slightly anxious, thinking about the worst thing you have ever done, the embarrassment, the shame, the guilt. These are secondary emotions that we believe psychopaths lack.
Most subjects will understandably sweat and experience an increased heart rate. But psychopaths aren't stirred.
Psychopaths are wired up differently to the rest of us. They are literally cold-blooded.
They meant nothing to you. You never felt one thing for these women.
No, I didn't. No.
Are psychopaths evil? Are they devils with horns on them and a pitchfork? No. They look like you and me. They look normal. They blend into society very easily. Really, there's a small difference between a psychopath and a normal individual.
These scientific insights may help explain how a psychopath like Tommy Lynn Sells could kill without fear, again and again. It has helped Dr. Stone understand those he considers most evil. Killers who combine the deadly charm of Ted Bundy, the festering rage of Gary Ridgway, and the fearless drive of Tommy Lynn Sells. Killers like John Wayne Gacy Jr. Dr. Michael Stone has created a scale that measures human evil. The highest level is reserved for psychopaths who have committed the most gruesome crimes, serial murderers like the killer clown John Wayne Gacy Jr. Chicago, 1971. Gacy is a charismatic psychopath who creates the image of a model citizen. He even volunteers in the community, entertains kids as a clown. He is a husband and stepfather, a businessman with a contracting company on the rise. Active in local politics, he even has his picture taken with First Lady Rosalind Carter. Until the end, he maintains his facade.
I think people perceive me as being 6'5", with green eyes and blood dripping from my mouth and horns sticking out of the top of my head.
Like Ted Bundy, Gacy could be charming, but he also had a dark side.
Gacy has secrets. like a book hidden in his wall entitled "Pretty Boys Must Die." He hides behind the mask of the ideal neighborhood man.
Like Gary Ridgway, Gacy harbored a simmering rage, directed not at his mother, but in Gacy's case, at his father.
My dad always thought I was dumb and stupid, would never amount to anything, so anything that I got involved with, I always put 110% into it, because I figure if you're going to get involved in something, then do it right.
His father is an alcoholic who abuses his wife and brutally demeans his children. He ridicules his son, calling him a mama's boy, a queer, and a he-she. He shoots the family dog to punish his children.
Gacy may have been predominantly homosexual. He was, in any event, deeply shamed by his apparently intolerant father. This humiliation stirred up a tremendous anger, both at his father and at the homosexual part of his own psyche. Later on, he directed this hatred toward his victims.
Gacy claims that he only killed one boy out of self-defense.
He was coming at me with a knife. I just took the knife away and twisted it in his hand, and that's what killed him.
But the shocking truth and body count would eventually surface. He targets young men, many of them teenagers he employs. Like Tommy Lynn Sells, he has an unrelenting urge to kill. And behind the closed doors of his suburban house, these rooms will be the last his victims will see. One element firmly places John Wayne Gacy Jr. on the top level of the scale of evil: prolonged torture. In Gacy's house, police find a pair of handcuffs, a pistol, a syringe, needle, and rope. But it is underneath Gacy's home where police will uncover the extent of his evil. The bodies of 29 victims are found.
I'm not the monster image that's been portrayed of me.
He claims the bodies in his house have been put there by someone else. He is eventually convicted of 33 murders, but one thing sets him apart from Bundy, Ridgway, even from Tommy Lynn Sells as the most cold-blooded, most evil killer.
People don't understand. I feel I was wrongfully convicted. I've even had contact with some of the victims' family. And you see, they're the real victims along with myself.
John Wayne Gacy Jr. was executed by lethal injection in 1994. His last words were, "Kiss my ass."
Because he made his victims endure prolonged torture, and because he also denied his crimes, I would place him on the highest level, 22, on my scale of evil.
Science now reveals that psychopaths may be wired differently, hardwired to be cold-blooded. Certain traits define a psychopath: superficial charm, glib speech, impulsiveness, sexual promiscuity, lack of empathy, callousness, lack of guilt or remorse. And there may be millions, as many as 1 in every 100 people. What makes some kill? What makes some evil? Forensic researchers are only beginning to unravel the mysteries of the savage psychopath, warped by both nature and nurture. In his quest to unlock the secrets of evil, Dr. Michael Stone investigates all the factors that contribute